Number one, it deflects attention onto God's gifts as the main source of our happiness rather than God himself. It obscures texts like, "Whom have I in heaven but you? And on earth there's nothing that I desire besides you." Texts like, "At God's right hand are pleasures forevermore." Or, "I count everything as loss because of the surpassing value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord." The emphasis falls so heavily on happiness because of the gifts that he gives, like health, wealth, prosperity, rather than on him. That's number one. Number two, the cross itself and its proper function is obscured, or the crucified life is obscured. Peter says in his first letter that Christ died not so that we wouldn't have to suffer, but so that we would have a model for how to suffer. That's what he says in 1:21 and following. Christ gave you an example by suffering. So follow your suffering example. And I don't hear the note of suffer with Christ, but rather he died so that we could have an easy life. Third, the prosperity gospel ignores the profound redemptive historical shift between the Old and New Testament from a come-see religion to a mainly go-tell religion. Here's what I mean. In the Old Testament, clearly, the Queen of Sheba was supposed to cross hundreds of miles and drop her jaw at the wealth of Solomon and say, "You've got a great God." That's the pattern in the Old Testament. You don't have in the New Testament anything like, pastors should live in palaces so that the Queen of Sheba could come and say, "Whoa, I'd like to be a pastor, be able to live like that." You don't have anything like that. Instead, all the focus goes on to the Great Commission, and Paul saying something like, "I don't count my life of any value or as precious to myself